guys, welcome on into Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, and you will never guess where I am right now. I'm at home because this is day 127 broadcasting right here from my studio apartment in Manhattan. And I have to say, it has been one wild ride. And by wild, I mean mild, because we are still in the thick of this very, very serious pandemic that is going on right now. And folks, if I can just tell you one thing, wear a mask. It is so simple. You can wear a really fun mask. My mom's sending me an Alice Cooper one. How cool is that? I get to walk around the streets of New York with Alice Cooper's face over my face. And the best part is you get to help save other people's lives. You get to help do your part in this world. And guess what? It doesn't matter if you have salad for lunch because no one's going to see it in your teeth. You also don't have to worry about weird, creepy guys on the street telling you to smile because no one can see that you're scowling at them instead. And guess what? If you do this, we'll be able to not only help people, but we'll be able to get sports back because we are dying without sports. Sports has kind of come back, but not in the way that we want it. We want to see everything back to normal. And the best way we're going to do that is if you wear a mask and if you just do it, people, okay? I know it sounds wild, I have to say this, but I do have to say this. And the best part is, though, that we can still talk about sports because we have this awesome show, Drinks with Binks, and we have this awesome guest here today. ESPN's Mina is joining us. She is an NFL analyst on NFL Live, host of the Mina Show featuring Lenny, and also the host of ESPN Daily Podcast for a limited time longer. Mina, thank you so much for joining us here today on a very busy NFL day, too.
Thank you for having me. I agree with all of your points about masks. I am very curious to see, well, I don't go out into the world, but I do wonder if guys are still hollering at women wearing masks and like they can't really see their faces. I imagine they are, and that kind of gives away the game a little bit. But I like wearing my mask. You don't have to put on makeup.
Yeah, you just
really recognize
you. Really worry about this side of your face, right? It's like I don't know. I love lip syncing. I love just like talking to myself. It's great, right? Like, and also
I have many masks. Yeah. I don't have one with Alice Cooper's face on it. Have you seen the ones where people get their own face though on their masks?
No, I haven't, but I think that's amazing. Or it's like those
they look weird, of course.
Have you seen those like cups that people have, and it's like looks like it's like a nose if you're drinking it? Well, this is great. Really glad we've discussed all these different weird things that you can have your face on. But speaking of faces, we like to put drinks in them. And that's what we're doing on the show. What a segue. I'm really great with words, especially in front of you, Mina. What are we drinking here on Drinks with Binks today?
The same thing I drink every day, Julie, multiple times a day. You can't see the rest of my office, but the Kansas Spindrift are littered around in a very disturbing fashion. I drink so much of this, and I actually asked them to sponsor me shamelessly, and they agreed to send me some. So Spindrift, I'm still pushing Spindrift everywhere. Please continue to send me.
I have one surprisingly right beside me too. You know what? I've never had Spindrift before. I have now a big goblet of it here. I'm really excited to. I've been a La Croix person personally, but that's just because I haven't tasted this. So
makes it look like La Crap.
Wow, you're right. I am on this now.
Better, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so we're gonna sip on our Spindrift, and we're gonna gab sports, your career, everything and beyond. And Mina, so I said it's day 127 for me. I mean, who's keeping count at this point? How would you describe where you are today? We're shooting this Wednesday. Where is Mina Kimes in terms of like your head during quarantine?
Well, in my house, every day, pretty much, except for when I walk my dog. Mentally, throughout this whole period, I've been, as you mentioned, hosting our daily show, ESPN Daily, which there was a moment in the quarantine where we were like, what are we going to talk about every day? But that moment passed pretty quickly, and then it became really hectic because so much of the last few months have been about bringing sports back. What does that take? Is it safe? Is it workable in America? Is it workable in other countries? Yes. What can we expect in the fall? And so it's funny, like not that the show is typically about X's and O's, but, we're often engaging with things that are happening on the court or the field. Now it feels like so often we're just engaging with logistics, talking to players in the bubble, telling those stories. And it's been interesting. It's a difficult position, I think, for a lot of us because we're not experts in those things, but we've been doing our best to kind of just talk to people who are in the know and understand what's been happening.
Yeah, I've been listening to your podcast a ton, not just saying that because you're on the show, but, when you talked with Malika Andrews the other day about the NBA bubble and you teased talking with Greg Wyshynski, because I'm a big hockey fan. I'm very curious about how the NHL does their phase 4, not really bubble. But also you've done a lot of other feature stories too, whether it's diving into something that happened a couple of years ago or different scandals, everything like that. And I do want to get into more specifically on the podcast a little bit later. But when we look at quarantine and just this time, like we know so much about you from what we see on TV and we see on Twitter, but what's it been like behind the scenes? Like maybe what's something that you've either realized about yourself or something that's like new you've tried that had this time not happened, you never would have known?
Well, you hear from a lot of people like, oh, it's been a good time to improve yourself and like, focus on a hobby or learn a craft. For me, that has been my husband getting really good at cooking and me getting really good at eating his cooking. It's been awesome, actually. And, that's been my self-improvement track. And he has become like a gourmet chef in the quarantine. It's kind of wild. He bought like a sous vide machine. Yeah. So I'm eating like a king over here. That's been big for me. And then, just continuing the crosswords. I do a lot of crosswords. Now I'm like back in like 2017 in the New York Times archive. So that's a big hobby for me.
So how long have you been doing crosswords for?
My whole life, but I kind of got serious about it again maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And, I only do Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But, and then so you run out. So during the other days of the week, you have to dip into the strategic reserve of Times crosswords on the app.
Do you think that like you have become smarter by doing them, or was it you were smarter and then you got good at them because you were already smart? Like where's the chicken and the egg with the crosswords?
Knowledge definitely helps when doing crosswords, but it is one of those, I think, things where you do them a lot, you start picking up on tricks, common words. You get better the more you do it. Absolutely.
Wow. Mina is super smart and she's done so much in her life and beyond. We have a whole lot more to ask her about on Drinks with Binks. We'll be back after this break, drinking on a little Spindrift. Let's give out that free promo here. We'll be back, guys.
Sponsor me.
Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. I'm so excited now to be joined by ESPN broadcaster and newly named NFL analyst on NFL Live, Mina Kimes. And Mina, this is such a well-deserved role for you to be acquiring to your illustrious resume, but also then to for women around the world, for women in sports, for women in any profession. It's really good to see someone in this very typically male-dominated role. For you, when did you realize that this dream could become a reality?
Oh, probably 3 weeks ago when they told me I had the job. I've been covering the NFL ever since I came to ESPN, but mostly as a reporter, right? As a writer, really didn't start working in an analyst capacity. Actually, fairly on, I was doing my friend Bill Barnwell, his podcast, which is analysis and very kind of X's and O's oriented. And then a couple years ago, I guess I launched my own NFL podcast. And so the last few years, I've been kind of honing in on football. Most of my shows, like Around the Horn, Highly Questionable, that I do, we do talk about a wide variety of sports, but football's my passion. It's my hobby. It's my obsession, probably to a not an okay place. So I just could not be more thrilled to be focusing on it full time.
And for you, what, like, first of all, I always love your analogies, and I've told you that before. And I think that brings in an audience that maybe they don't understand a specific play or a specific term, but they understand what that is like. And I always like to bring that into my work. But for you, what do you think makes your analysis unique? Like when people turn on, they say, oh, Mina Kimes is talking about the Seattle Seahawks. I want to watch her because blank.
A couple of things that I strive for. I wouldn't, I don't want to praise myself, but one, I still love football. I think coming to it a little bit late in this particular role, I've been a fan most of my life. I still lose my mind when cool stuff happens. I'm still so passionate about the players and the games and the cool plays and, changes. So I hope that inflects all my analysis. And then I would say, a lot of, like I mentioned, Bill Barnwell was sort of an early advocate of mine and friend. A lot of the people who supported me early on and the people whose work I've inhaled for the last, decade or so have been people in the analytics realm. And that's something I'm not, doing my own modeling or whatever, but I'm very influenced by their work and educated by it. And I think on a show like NFL Live, I really look forward to bringing that element to a lot of the analysis as well.
So then what are some of the like analytics, different which types that really get you excited?
Well, like I said, Barnwell used to work for a website called Football Outsiders, who I have read for years and years and years. And, Aaron Schatz currently runs it, and they do a terrific job of quantifying things that are happening on the field. We at ESPN have a group that's been doing fabulous work to try to quantify things like pass rush and pass blocking over the last year using next-gen stats that use shifts. Is this really boring? I'm so sorry. It's so nerdy and boring.
I'm actually taking notes right now. I'm like, okay, well, next-gen stats.
Here's the thing about football. We have dumb stats, or we have these stats that we've used for years to say, oh, the quarterback threw X yards. Well, that doesn't actually capture what's happening on the football field. It doesn't capture a game situation. It doesn't capture the strength of the opponent. It doesn't capture the intention, right, or how open a guy was. We now have stats that do those things or attempt to, and I think that's really immeasurably useful when we're trying to quantify and rank different players and teams. So, I hope that people have open ears and minds to this kind of information because it's really helpful.
Right. So you're more on the side of like science versus not wearing a mask type of thing, right?
Wear your mask, and analytics too. Mask and analytics can go together.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? It's because that's definitely a way that we don't see a lot of analysts, typically former football players, really rely on their experiences, their relationships. They're not necessarily saying, oh, well, X plus Y equals Z based on this and this and this. That's me talking math and science.
No, that was great. Great math.
I feel like we connected on that right there.
Yeah. No, it sounded like something I would say, honestly.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I can do this. I guess I can be an NFL analyst too. No, but I think that's where, we're seeing a lot more of that. And that's, a great way for us to understand the game in a different way because Manalytics only goes so far.
Wow. Manalytics. Yes. Women analytics works too, Yeah. And like I said, I like to marry both tape and statistics, and hopefully, so I think sometimes people think of statistical analysis or leaning on that sort of work as being dispassionate. And I think far from it. In fact, some of the greatest NFL players on earth, some of the most, like Aaron Donald, for example, is a player who, when you watch him, if you were an alien who would never watch a football game, who came down to earth, you would look at him and say, that's the best human. Congratulations, mankind. He is also, everything he does is actually, can be difficult to quantify sometimes, even though he does have, double-digit stacks. Advanced metrics love him and are able to quantify a lot of the really cool and awesome things he does, the degree to which he's double and triple teamed. So like I said, it all should come together, and I hope to bring it together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, just so I clarify, when I meant Manalytics, I meant like dudes that are like, oh, well, they have a lot of heart, they'll win the game type of thing. Like,
oh, okay, that's Manalytics, and that's
Manalytics. And then womanlytics is like, this is how it actually is. This is X plus Y equals Z, and this is like the actual smart thing that's going on, not the Analytics one, just so everyone out there.
Okay, yeah.
But we have, we're going to head to break right now. I have a whole lot more I want to ask you, including about the Washington team that is really just the Washington team at this moment. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more with ESPN's NFL analyst, Mina Kimes, here on Drinks with Binks. Bottoms up.
Oh.
With no alcohol, which is great. Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB. We have Mina Kimes from ESPN here with us today. We're sipping on a little Spindrift, which for those of you who don't know is a very delicious, non-alcoholic, sort of like a flavored water.
Seltzer. It's flavored seltzer water.
You just can't figure out what that word is. Very refreshing. I've been actually trying, just for everyone out there keeping track, been really trying to lay off the booze in the queue for the last couple weeks because what's the point? I mean, why? Like, have drinks on the weekend. Yeah, just try, we said trying to be a little bit more healthy. Speaking of healthy, we are also at the franchise tag deadline right now. We decided to get Mina Kimes literally at the time that she'd be most busy. And so that means that Dak Prescott has been franchise tagged officially for the upcoming season. And also, we have just seen that Derrick Henry signed a 4-year deal with the Titans. I wrote down Derrick Henry just got paid, which is my official analytics on the situation. Mina, when you look at what's going on in the NFL right now, and we talk about what's going on in the world, in what way has COVID essentially maybe affected some of these contracts? What role has it played?
Well, I would say not the Dak contract's probably unaffected by it. Those two sides, the Cowboys and him, been far apart in terms of the length of the deal. And I'm honestly kind of shocked that they didn't get something done from Dallas's perspective. But you are hearing that there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with the cap, right? Because there's so much uncertainty about the season. Will the NFL be able to reap as much revenue as it normally does? How many are we going to get the full slate of games? Will there be fans? These are all open questions right now. So there is some concern, I think, about on both sides, from players and teams' perspective, on, okay, do I want a deal now? Is it safe to hit the market in a year? What is that going to look like? And so it was a pretty quiet deadline. Not a ton of surprises given the names involved, and I'll reserve judgment on the Henry deal until I see the numbers. So your analysis is actually spot on. He got paid. That's just
I know the numbers. My boyfriend's sitting right behind the camera. What are the numbers again? Of Derrick Henry?
50 million, 25 guarantee.
Yeah, 50 million. Yeah, 25 guaranteed, 4 years. So my boyfriend's also my production assistant in studio. So.
Yeah. Okay, 25 guaranteed. That sounds about right, and that has a lot to do, I think, with the Tannehill contract. But good for Derrick Henry, man. That's great for him. It's so hard now. Well, it's not. I mean, some running backs are still getting paid. Christian McCaffrey just got a mega contract, but the aforementioned analytics have not been very friendly to the running back contract. Analytics, though, loves running back. So yeah. I'm happy for him. It's great. It's a great deal for him.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it from what we have seen so far. And I will track back, though, Mina. You said you were very surprised that the Cowboys and Dak didn't get something done before this deadline. How come?
Well, so Dak's playing a $31 million franchise tag about that. And if they tag him again next year, it'll be $37 million. You were here looking at contracts that were, I think, around 35-ish or so coming in under that. The problem is, since he's going to play another year under the tag, he is 1 year closer to free agency. They can't tag him again after next year. Basically, it would be cost prohibitive. And then he enters the same territory that Kirk Cousins did in Washington, where it's just too expensive to keep him. So he actually gets to go out, which is so rare in the modern NFL for a quarterback to do this, to actually go out into free agency, test the market. And as Kirk did, got like a fully guaranteed contract. So from Dak's perspective, he gets closer to that. From the team's perspective, I think Dak Prescott's going to be very. I already think he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be very good this year. They have a very loaded offense, so it's hard for me to see a situation in which they can move on from him after this year. So all they did was just make life harder for Dallas, for themselves, by kicking the can down the road yet again.
Right, and potentially harder on their new coach, Mike McCarthy, as well, and how he fits into that system. And as you mentioned, though, too, the COVID stuff. Maybe do you think they're gambling on the fact that, like, people aren't going to be able to get as much in terms of negotiating a salary?
Were you just blowing on the indivisible dice?
Yeah, the old, you know.
I didn't know that's a...
It means
maybe you can't do that
right?
now, though. No, don't do that anymore. Keep your breath to yourself.
That's COVID.
Yeah, get out. Get out.
Andrew Cuomo would say, and no blowing on dice. That is COVID restricted.
They gotta... Vegas is different. Yeah, I don't think so, because, like I said, if it was next year, maybe, I think, because there's so much uncertainty, but one imagines that in 2 years, when Dak would hypothetically, hit the market, things will be settled again. Okay.
All right. Well, before we go into more of that, I did tease, I'd like to follow up on the teases, about Washington announcing that they are no longer going to be the Redskins. However, they announced that on Washington letterhead from their Washington Twitter account. Your thoughts?
That they do not want to change their name, or who the person on top does it?
Just like the whole way, yeah.
Yeah, they also said they were retiring the name, which I found to be a very funny word choice, like the name's taking a cruise or something.
Yeah. Have a big party for the name, like a big cake.
A send-off,
Yeah.
Yeah, right now the TBDs. We've been hearing a lot of rumors about. I mean, it's obviously overdue and a long time coming. I never thought I would see this day with Dan Snyder, given everything we know about him. But I guess the money talked too loudly with the naming sponsor and the hypothetical stadium in DC. So we'll see what happens. I like the Red Hawks and the Red Tails, right? I mean, I don't know if you have do you have a name that you prefer for them?
No, but I really enjoyed when we, speaking of the CFL, as we have been in the breaks, the Ottawa Red Blacks were a real hit when that came out. So maybe they could take something off of that too, or maybe just be a CFL team, because that would probably be a better place for them to stay. So Washington Red Blacks, we welcome you to the CFL, because it's not the first time a CFL has had two teams with the same name. Really glad
you just solved two problems with one solution. That's just incredible.
That's why we are talking women analytics here on Drinks with Binks here today. So we'll have to see what happens with that. We can't blow on dice, but you have to put money down. What is the name of the team?
I'll go with the Red Tails.
Okay. And what's the logo look like?
I've seen some mock-ups, actually. So the Red Tails are the Tuskegee Airmen, and people have done some pretty cool pilot-style planes, like planes. People like planes.
Love them.
Planes are cool.
Planes. Yep, haven't been on one in a while. That's what I will have to say. And I'm also curious what that looks like for NFL teams in terms of their travel coming up this season. And I have been obsessed with COVID. I'm just going to put it out there right now. And I'm very curious, Mina, what kind of planning have you guys done on NFL Live for a season without football?
Well, Julie, I think the plan is that there's gonna be football. That was my dog barking in the distance. I hope my mic isn't picking up on that, but I think he's trying to get to cut this segment so that I don't have to talk about that possible. What, Lenny? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Lenny needs you. Okay. Yeah. I know dogs come first, right? It says dogs first, people second in the background there too. So I get it. Okay.
I'm actually still here.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously we wouldn't want that to be the case, but just curious, like even just the NFL, what kind of, at this moment, we're seeing MLS, we're seeing NBA, what sort of like contingency plans do you imagine the league at this moment would be kind of like trying to figure out?
So I will address the NFL possibility. I think what's plausible there is that the season gets pushed back, right? It's funny because whenever we talk about these leagues and their plans and everything they're trying to do, it's really just all contingent on what happens in the country. Like there's only so much any of these leagues can do. I think they can try to protect their players and try to implement, various policies. But unless that curve starts to flatten in certain parts of the country, in leagues like baseball and football, where you have player mobility, unlike the NBA, there's only so much, right, that you can do to stop it. And there's an indefinite threshold of players testing positive that would even stop any of these leagues.
Right.
So I think football, the likeliest or the most likely possibility would just be a delay, which is possible. It's something that they can do if they have to. I think something also with college football that seems increasingly plausible every day.
Yeah, right. Just because of the nature of college football, it doesn't seem in schools and student athletes and all that, doesn't seem like it's conducive to getting off the ground during this time, even though Coach Ogeron would like that to be the case. Thankfully, he's not in charge of what's going on in this country right now, but that is another story for another day. We got to take a quick time out. I love having these really awkward throwaway comments and then going to break. We have a whole lot more that we want to talk with Mina Kimes from ESPN about, so don't go anywhere. We are drinking and binking, sipping on some flavored seltzer with our ESPN analyst, Mina Kimes. Hey guys, welcome back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB. We've got ESPN's Mina Kimes with us here today, recently named NFL analyst on NFL Live. And we've been talking, of course, about coronavirus and its effect on the upcoming NFL season. And when we see NBA, we see MLS, we see NHL looking to return, what do you think the NFL is most closely watching with how these leagues return to play?
I think baseball, actually, because baseball's not in a bubble, right? And the NFL their doctors said it's not realistic for the sport to be in a bubble because of the size and scope and the nature of the game. Baseball is, I hate using the word experiment because it, I think, undermines the effect that all these decisions are having on people's lives, not just players and coaches, but literally everyone who works in and around these games. But baseball is playing out similarly to how the NFL would hypothetically play out. Teams in their home stadiums, traveling normally. I know it's a different schedule and there's some changes, but ultimately, if they can't pull it off without having a number of positive tests or an outbreak, I think that stops the season. I have to imagine that would concern the NFL greatly.
Right. Well, it's good. I mean, to their benefit, they sort of do get to see a bit of a test run. And when we look at a lot of these leagues, like when I was looking at NHL and a lot of them, aren't doing a lot of face-to-face interviews with players, which is for a good cause. But everything's sort of virtual now. And I was starting to think, I wonder if this will become the norm going forward with, maybe this changes locker room access or scrums or anything like that. In what way do you think the NFL, regardless, whether it's media, whether it's play, whether it's travel, whether it's fans, will be most greatly influenced by the pandemic? What would be maybe the thing that we'll see in 2 or 3 years that you think, oh, that's different now because of what we saw?
I think what you just described probably nails it on the head, which is just fewer human beings having access to players, and that not just media, right? But like the NFL right now, they're still haggling over their plan with the PA, but there is this idea that there's going to be tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 people, right, in the league to try to control the number of people in any space at any time. I wouldn't be surprised if that continues after this, but not just in football, in workplaces, in general public life. I think, but I think that's something with football that will probably not go back to being the way it used to be for a while, even if there's a vaccine and it's able to be mass produced, I suppose.
Yeah, and much to the chagrin of lots of commissioners that will be happy to get rid of these pesky media people that are always in and around covering their leagues. Now we've done a lot of intense discussions here on the show so far, but Mina, you are, as mentioned, you're very well known for the fun nature that you bring to your analysis and the analogies that you use. And so we wanted to play a little game, and you have a lot of very interesting coworkers at ESPN, great personalities. There's also so many interesting people and personalities in football, players, coaches, personnel, you name it. And I wanted to find out if you could tell me, I'm going to name an ESPN person. You tell me who you think they most resemble in the league. All right?
Just anyone in the league.
Anyone.
Player, coach, anyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mascot, whatever.
Mascot.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
First up, Diana Rossini.
Gardner Minshew.
Oh, I very much enjoy that. How come?
Because she's scrappy, likable, energetic, kind of like a dynamo, you know? Right? That's a good.
Yeah.
That feels like such an old person way to describe a young person. She's a dynamo, but yeah, people root for her, and she just kind of brings that energy everywhere she goes.
Yes.
I don't know if she'll like that or not.
I think she'll like it. I think she definitely could hang with Gardner Minshew. I think they would be
Definitely.
like,
Yeah, they'd get along.
Oh yeah, they'd be able. They'd like out. They would like out energize each other, you know, or like they'd out drink each other. That's what I was gonna say, but I don't know if appropriate.
Yeah.
Pablo Torre.
I have a couple. So Pablo. All right, this might be a little surprising, but I'm gonna go with Pete Carroll for Pablo. Because Pablo has this like very intense hippie side that kind of comes out at moments. He loves Bill Walton, which I think is telling. But so I think in the NFL, Pete Carroll is probably the closest we've got to like a kind of Zen master, surfer, you know.
Yeah, the West Coast vibe. Yeah.
I'm trying to, yeah, West Coast vibe. And Pablo really, it's fun. I think that's something people might not know about him, but that is definitely his wavelength.
I didn't know Pablo Torre was a hippie. That's news.
He's,
But I love that.
He definitely probably owns a crystal, I feel like.
Great. I am all up on that kind of stuff too. Got lots of crystals here. The good kind, not the illegal kind. Okay, Stugotz. What do we got?
I'm gonna go with, this is gonna sound like crazy when I say it, but bear with me, Bill Belichick.
Really?
Now, they seem to have nothing in common in any kind of way, but when you think about it, Stugotz, a lot of people think he's a little sneaky, maybe not the most can be a little misleading perhaps, but is beloved by everyone close to him and has an incredible coaching tree. That might be a little bit self-aggrandizing, but I consider myself to be part of the Stugotz coaching tree. So, you know, and also I think people have a hard time telling where does the character end and the man begin. And I think people have that challenge with Belichick as well.
And does he have a similar wardrobe, perhaps, or is he?
Yeah, like similarly sloppy, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
More. Yeah, that seems to check out. Okay.
Yeah.
We got Katie Nolan.
Very funny, very, very quick. Likes video games. So I'll go Baker Mayfield, who is all of those things.
Yeah. I think that checks out. I think those two would. I think she'd be really happy too that you said that she's like.
You think she'd like that? Okay. I don't want to choose any that people don't like, but yeah.
I think she'd only be happy if you had said Bill Belichick or Tom Brady.
Yeah.
No.
But she would also recognize that those are deeply false choices.
Yeah, that's not her.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield and her, yes, they would be match made in heaven. There were so many more I want to get to, but we cannot, unfortunately, including if what football player would Lenny your dog be? But we will come with that answer on the other side of this break. This is Mina Kimes on Drinks with Binks. Don't go anywhere. Hey guys, welcome on back. We are drinking and binking with Mina Kimes from ESPN, NFL analyst on NFL Live, host of the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny and ESPN Daily. And we talked about it earlier on in the show, ESPN Daily, the daily podcast on so many interesting topics within sport. Pablo Torre is now going to be taking over from you. And many people watching this, or basically just my mom, they listen to daily podcasts, and I've always been curious, like, What is maybe the most surprising thing a listener would be, I guess, surprised about in terms of what it is like to put it together? Because I can only imagine it is very arduous.
Yeah, I think there's a perception that it's just you. Like, a lot of people think we do it that morning, right? It comes out 5 or 6 a.m. Eastern time. I think 5 a.m. I should probably know that. And so people are like, man, how do you get up so early? And I'm like, wait, what, you really think I get up at like 3 a.m. and make this, get someone else, right? Because it's a different guest every day. So most of them are pre-produced. We do pivot sometimes with the news. If, for example, a couple days, not today, but I don't know when this is running, but on Tuesday, we did one on the Washington football team changing their name because that was big news. But some of them are pre-produced. Some of them take weeks to make,
right.
Getting sound and interviews. And it's all really a testament to the production staff who are split between LA and New York and who do an incredible job.
Right. Yeah. And sort of likening it to the New York Times Daily, where it's like a feature. You're almost like putting on like a show, obviously, but like you have to incorporate different sounds and different guests. Exactly. And it's very well scripted too. And, it's a story told in a succinct amount of time. And Mina, you obviously know how to write very well. You're an incredible writer for ESPN, but you also had that as your job beforehand. In what way have you found sort of the financial journalism realm help you in sports journalism? Like, what is the best thing you took from that world?
Well, I guess the numbers thing is translated kind of our earlier conversation about analytics versus analytics. But I would say for the most part, as a financial journalist, I was an investigative reporter. You're trying to make people care about things that maybe they wouldn't necessarily care about, X hedge funder or Y business. I did the XY thing that you did. Yeah. And with sports, while people already inherently care about Aaron Rodgers or Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, guys I've written about, the challenge is to figure out new and interesting things to say. And I think that's the same tool that I used to use as a financial journalist is, okay, you already know who Von Miller is. How can I make this story show you something new about him, or kind of give you the experience of what it's like to be around him, which I think is what some people really generally want out of profiles. And that's something that I really strove to do when I was writing features for the magazine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Baker Mayfield before, but you did a fantastic feature on him, and people do like to know what it's like to be around these people that they never really get this kind of access. Is there someone, clearly that's not the world we live in at this moment, but is there someone that sort of like piques your interest that you're thinking, hey, they would be very interesting to follow around for a day?
Well, today, Dak Prescott. I don't know what the hell he's thinking. Actually, all year, Dak Prescott's going to be a great story given what happened between him and Dallas. So he would be high on my list of NFL players where I'd love to have some insight into his life. I think Richard Sherman's one of the more fascinating figures in sports, one of the more brilliant people in sports, seen and done so much in this league and knows everyone, is now kind of settling into this elder statesman role while still being one of the best cornerbacks in the game. But he's someone I would love to spend time with as well. And
when you mentioned the Dak Prescott conversation, I always loved sort of the tweet you use of that, the sloth, like coming out like someone's talking.
People hate that.
Someone's talking about
it's
Dak
like
Prescott. What topic, maybe that is it, but if you can think outside of that, what topic, like when you log on to Twitter, that you see and the trolls are coming at you about it, can you not stop yourself responding?
Oh, not stop myself, because I was like, that's everything right now that I don't want. Well, okay, not running back contracts, because at this point I can avoid weighing on that. But when people use like bad stats, like if X team runs the ball 20 times, they win, even though I know that's stupid, and I don't have to explain why it's stupid for the 3,000th time, I still feel compelled to like come in over the top. And you know, I just can't resist. Yeah.
I love that. It's like it's so basic, but there's some things that just like get you. When people tell me to go back to Canada, I'm like, gladly, sure. You can't. You can't. I don't think you can. Like, I would say that some. But this isn't about the trolls. I just think it's good that trolls think that they can run wild like zombies, and they can't. So whether it's, 22 times rushing the ball or going back to Canada, we got them. We got these trolls. We got a whole lot more we want to talk with Mina about. We got to take a quick time out. We are drinking and binking, sipping on some Spindrift with ESPN's NFL analyst, Mina Kimes. Don't go anywhere. Hey guys, we are back here on Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks. We got Mina Kimes from ESPN. And Mina, I apologize ahead of time for asking you this question because I know your PR staff is not going to be happy about it. I'm sorry, guys, but I have to ask. We saw this week NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski suspended for an email he sent to a senator in response to a comment about NBA players and putting Blue Lives Matter on the back of the jersey. Anyone out there can Google it. You can figure it out. Some colleagues, ESPN, have stood up for him. Some NBA players have stood up for him. What do you think about Woj getting suspended?
I love Woj. And that's how I feel. I think my colleagues who you are speaking about, who've been kind of asked or talked about on social media, have sort of said something to the effect, the dude, aside from being a killer reporter, obviously, right, like the best there is. I mean, the guy has a noun associated with his name. I mean, like Schefter and Passan don't even have those, right? Like, there's no Woj bomb for Schefter. He never got one. I told Passan, Jeff Passan, who covers baseball for us.
Passan Gasson, right?
Yeah, Passan Gas when he breaks news, and he didn't love that actually.
That's got to stick. That's got to stick.
But I love Woj, and I love that he stands up for what he believes in, and he is a very smart and cool guy.
That is a great way to put it. And it's tough to suspend someone who's so valuable to you because of the work he's done. It's, people have notifications for his tweets. I don't want to make you. I know you're.
I didn't know you could do notifications for other people.
Yeah, well, we had Adam Schefter on, and I asked him, what if you want to tweet about ice cream or tacos? It's like people have notifications for my tweets. They don't care if I like mint chocolate. But what if
they're like, oh no, and it's just like Adam Schefter being like, feeling goofy tonight. That would be amazing.
Yeah, splurged and bought myself a Slurpee. Yeah.
What would you think if you saw Schefter tweet that?
Be amazing. But yeah, anyway, you can answer this however you feel. How do you feel about, a network suspending someone based on a personal email?
Social media is challenging for all of us because, and by the way, I know you're not talking about work something email, that happened on social media. Yeah, it's like a weird time, right? Like our lives are so blended together. What we write, what we say, something personally I struggle with, Julie. Like, I never thought things I would email, tweet, say in a public sphere that anyone would care about other than my mom, my dog, sometimes my husband. So I think it's something that like all of us are kind of navigating now. I think Adrian meant what he said later in that regard. And I support him both in, at every step of the way in terms of like what he's put out into the world.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to put you in a tough spot with that. I think a lot of people would feel the same way as you. I'm sure Bill Hoffheimer really appreciates me asking these tough cues here on Drinks with Binks, and there is no alcohol involved, which is always great. Taking it back to you, Mina. You've dominated the financial investigative world, dominating the sports world right now. If you had to pick another sphere or realm to be like, check, I want to go dance there, what would it be?
Crosswords. Pretty obvious. I actually made a sign for a crossword show that I never. Hold on.
Wow, this is I believe this is
Yeah,
breaking news here on.
I know. I haven't started the show yet, but I made a sign, which I feel like is the first step.
Yep. Here we go. World premiere. Crosstalk.
With Mina Kimes. I know it doesn't like quite. You gotta like cross Mina.
Crosstalk.
Yeah.
And what I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm on board. I think Fubo is putting in the first offer for this right now. Mina, what is like? Give me the log line of the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're down to talk crosswords, I'm here for you to puzzle it out with you every day. That's, there's be a lot of wordplay, a lot of analysis of the crossword, a lot of breakdowns, get on a telestrator,
Love it.
I think the audience could be huge. I don't know.
People love words. It's across all different genres, right?
Yeah, and if you're not into it, get a clue.
Yes. And if you could Google the clue too, like me, I would do that. This is great, Mina. Okay. Breaking news, Mina Kimes. New show here on Fubo TV, Crosstalk with Mina Kimes. Airs next week, I think. We're already in production.
You just said it last time.
I'm your executive producer, bitch. All right. I'm putting my money behind this and you.
Thank you.
This is great. Okay, we got to take a time out. We'll be back to say goodbye and to hear a secret from Mina, so don't go anywhere. We've had an awesome time here on Drinks with Binks with ESPN's Mina Kimes talking about football and her new hit show that is premiering and how she feels about Dak Prescott and beyond. Mina, what do you got coming up next?
You can check out ESPN Daily. Pablo Torres taking over soon. The Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny. If you like football, or NFL Live premiering in August, we think. And I'll be on that daily, and you should check it out.
I don't know how you do it, Mina. You are literally everywhere, and you managed to fit in an hour-long community service hours on Drinks with Binks. So thank you so much. You can follow her on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. You can follow us everywhere too. See this show again on YouTube. See it, listen to it on Spotify, Apple, and we will be back here for the rest of eternity from my home. I'm going to expense it, and we'll see you next time.